She noticed something was off on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing had gone wrong. The day had followed the plan almost perfectly. Meetings finished on time, tasks delivered, messages answered without delay. When she got home, she placed her bag on the kitchen chair and stood there for a few seconds, looking around as if the room had changed while she was gone. Everything was in order, clean, functional. And yet there was a quiet sense that something in her day hadn't been used. She changed her shoes, opened the refrigerator, closed it again. She wasn't really hungry. She made coffee anyway, more out of habit than desire. While the machine worked, she rested her hands on the counter and took a slow breath. That was when the thought appeared, calm, uninvited, clear. Her life felt too safe to require much attention. It didn't make her sad. It didn't scare her. She just noticed it. For years, safety had been the goal. She had come from an unstable phase, frequent changes, uncertain income, decisions made under pressure. It had been exhausting. She learned early that stability wasn't a luxury, it was protection, and she learned well. She built a solid career, organized her finances, chose predictable relationships, created routines designed to reduce surprises. It worked. People described her as grounded, reliable, mature. She agreed. That was how she saw herself too. She took pride in being someone others didn't worry about. But standing alone in that quiet kitchen, she understood something she had never said out loud. Her life was designed to be easy to manage, even for her. She sat at the table with the mug in her hands. The coffee was too hot. She waited. She usually did. Waiting had become second nature, waiting for the right time, the right conditions, the right version of herself. She thought about how similar her days felt, not boring, efficient. Each decision backed by logic, each choice made carefully enough to avoid regret. She didn't feel trapped. That was the uncomfortable part. Being trapped would have been obvious. It would have had edges, limits. She had space, options. She just rarely chose the ones that disturbed the balance she had worked so hard to build. Over time, she had stopped asking what if. She asked, is it worth it? And most of the time the answer was no. Not because it was wrong, but because it was inconvenient, because it introduced risk, because it didn't fit the orderly life she had constructed piece by piece. She thought about how often she postponed simple things, difficult conversations, small changes, ideas that felt interesting but impractical. Later, on a rare time, when things slowed down. The problem was that her time was always busy keeping everything the same. She stood, rinsed her mug, and placed it on the rack immediately. She didn't like things piling up, not dishes, not decisions. Order gave her a sense of control, and control had become a form of comfort. As the water ran, another realization settled in. It had been years since an important choice had required courage. Only planning. She was good at planning. But courage involves the possibility of getting it wrong. And getting it wrong was something she had learned to avoid efficiently. Not out of fear of failure, out of attachment to what worked. She returned to the living room and sat on the couch, picked up her phone, scrolled without really seeing anything. Invitations, messages, future commitments, everything safe, everything predictable. She imagined her life continuing exactly like this for the next 10 years. It didn't look bad, it looked the same. And that sameness carried a weight she hadn't expected. There was no decision that night, no sudden change, no secret plan forming in her mind. Just a new awareness. The stability she valued so deeply was also taking something quietly in return. Not money, not status. Time lived on autopilot, feelings postponed, parts of herself always scheduled for later. She set the phone down and sat there in silence, not trying to fix anything, just acknowledging it, letting the thought exist without pushing it away, because once you see a trade-off like that clearly, it's hard to unsee it. She knew she would keep making many of the same choices, keep being responsible, structured, careful, but she also knew that somewhere ahead there would be a decision that wouldn't fit inside her usual reasons. A moment where keeping everything as it was would have a cost too obvious to ignore. She didn't know when that moment would come. She only knew she would recognize it. And that recognition, simple, uncomfortable, quiet, was already changing how the future felt. Not farther away, just more present.